Good morning, beautiful souls. It's time for another Jeep Chat. This is Dr. Danny. Today I want to talk about a topic that's a little bit difficult for most people to talk about. They'd rather just sort of hear the headlines and get into it. And that topic is pregnancy and abortion and women's rights, okay? I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to discuss this topic because I take care of pregnant women. I take care of people before they're pregnant. I take care of people that don't want to be pregnant. Now, as an obstetrician, I don't perform abortions, despite what people think. There are obstetricians that can specialize in that type of services. They're called family planning specialists, and they're the doctors that will perform abortions or guide women through that decision. So those doctors do exist, and God bless them, because it is a very tough place to be. Now, I just want to preface this conversation by telling you I am not going to get into the morality of it with you, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, whether the laws that we have are just or unjust or any of that. That is up to you to decide. I just want to have a very frank conversation with you and anyone else that you might share this with about personal responsibility, because I think that's often left out of this discussion and this debate when we talk about women's rights and bodily autonomy. Okay, so just to clarify, I live in Texas. So what this means is that the rules as they are right now is that you cannot ask for, receive, purchase, or perform an abortion unless the mother's life is at risk. Okay, so that's the laws that we are dealing with here. That's what we are living with in Texas. Are there instances where I wish that law did not exist? Oh, you betcha, but that's a whole different topic, and I don't want to talk about that today, because the issue around abortion, it gets conflated into the woman's right to choose. So in other words, her ability to terminate her pregnancy or the inability to terminate her pregnancy is a sore subject for a lot of women. They want to be able to have that choice. But there are many, many other choices that a woman has. Because personally, I respect woman's bodily autonomy and the choices that she makes. Now, she may not make very good choices, and then we have consequences that I have to help her through. We all do that. We all have sort of accidental encounters with the opposite sex where we didn't think straight, or, it was an accident, or whatever excuse you want to give yourself, okay? But there are things that you can do right now, whether or not you live in a state where it's legal, whether or not you believe that it's something that you should be able to do or not be able to do. I'm talking about abortion specifically. When you are counseling a young woman, okay, or if you're a young woman yourself, I want you to understand that I am coming to you with this particular topic from a place where I believe your bodily autonomy is something that is uniquely yours. The decisions that you make are your decisions. I would never tell you what to do. Do I have opinions? Do I know what I would do in a certain situation? Absolutely. But I've been in a position where I can help people decide what's best for them based on what it is that they need. Okay, that's essentially what I do when I work with women in this situation. But the conversation really needs to start much, much earlier, you guys. It needs to start when women are just recognizing the power of their body. When they start learning about sexual intercourse, when they start learning about human reproduction and their role in that, the entire conversation needs to change. Okay? First of all, the gift of sex, the sexual union with another person, has anywhere from a 12 to 30% chance of resulting in a pregnancy. And that you need to understand that right off the bat as a young woman, as a young female, and even the men that are just getting into a new relationship, maybe for the first time with sexual energy. They need to understand that uninhibited ejaculation during the act of copulation has a 12 to 30% chance of resulting in a pregnancy, okay? So that's what you need to deal with right off the bat. before you even take off your clothes, before you even kiss that person, before you lay down in the bed with them, you need to understand that, okay? And so if you're at a point in your life where you're about to share that sacred union with another human being, that should be on your mind. Not how do you get out of it if you do get pregnant, but that it's a possibility. You know, that spirit, that the universe is constantly trying to create, it's constantly trying to grow, and that the body of woman and the seed of man have the power to create another human life. That should be thing one that is talked about. And it isn't. It isn't. A lot of things that we don't talk about too are birth control. You know, woman, you have the power to not get pregnant if you want to have a sexual union without the consequence of pregnancy. There are things that you can do to minimize your chance of actually getting pregnant. Now, the 100% safest option if you are terrified of being pregnant and having a child is to not have sex, okay? That is where your bodily autonomy is number one. Don't put yourself out there if you don't want it. If you do not want to be pregnant, don't put yourself out there in the first place. Okay, I'm just saying, you know, that might not be a good option for you, but that's going to prevent pregnancy, is just simply waiting until you're ready. Now, there's a lot of spiritual energy that's around that too, you know, retaining, not sort of wasting that energy on another until the act of creation is what you're actually trying to do, you know, and if that's where you are, that's great. But then there's the sort of, you know, the gray area. Like, yeah, when we are aroused and into somebody, it is very hard to say no. You know, it's very hard when you're in love or you're in lust and you're at the precipice of that moment. It's hard to say no. Sex feels good. People like it. Okay, but just remember that the act of intercourse, a 12 to 30% chance of having a child if it's unprotected, or if there's no forethought to that. Now, the second thing that people do is they're like, okay, whoops, we did it. Don't ejaculate, okay? Or don't ejaculate internally into a woman. That's another way to avoid it. But that only has about maybe 80 to 85% effectiveness. Because let me tell you guys, there are 20 million sperm in one ejaculate. That's the entire population of Texas. So one act of intercourse, one ejaculation, 20 million sperm. 20 million to one egg. So your odds are pretty good, you know? And all it takes is one. Sperm live for about 5 to 7 days, and they swim a centimeter an hour. So, ladies, if you don't want to be pregnant, you need to stay away from that stuff. That's just the bottom line. So abstinence, pulling out is what they call it. Some people call it being considerate. That's one thing you can do. Then there is the barrier method. So there's the female condom, and then there's the male condom. Now, I get it. When you're in the middle of that act, who wants to stop and put on something that doesn't make it feel as good, you know, that might irritate your skin down there, that might, you know, inhibit the full expression of your love and desire with the person that you're with. I get it. But the barrier methods work. If they're used the right way, you can absolutely prevent pregnancy. Okay? Now, the next option, which, you know, I am in the business of, you know, counseling women on, is hormonal and non-hormonal birth control. Okay, and there's lots of different options to do that as well. You can get a injection every 3 months that not only inhibits you from getting pregnant, but also inhibits your period. So, you know, you might not get a period, but you'll also not get pregnant. The other option would be a intrauterine device. These are little T-shaped devices that you can have inserted into your uterus by a licensed provider that will prevent you from getting pregnant. There are also some non-hormonal options. The Paragard IUD is one of the best options. They last for 10 years and it doesn't mess with your hormones. So if you are someone that cannot take progesterones or estrogens, the Paragard Copper IUD is one of the best options for you. Now, the insertion can be a little bit painful, but once it's in, you're good, you're set. So I really like those options. Another option you can do is a subdermal implant. It's a form of progesterone that lasts for 3 years. You get that right in here in your arm. If you all remember the old Norplant, this is the sort of the modern version of that. You can get that implanted under your arm. Your periods might go away, but you won't get pregnant. It's good for up to 3 years. So all those are really good options. They're called long-term, long-acting reversible contraception. So like the implant and the IUDs, you can get those, and those are removable and reversible. Then there's also the hormonal birth control, and there's thousands of different brands that you can take. There's basically the oral contraceptive pill. It's been around forever, okay? And basically, you know, I started that when I was 17 years old and was on it until I was about 28 years old, okay? That can prevent you from getting pregnant if you take it the right way. So you have to take it every single day. And I call that my anti-baby vitamin, okay? So you just basically take it every day you don't want a baby. Those are the options that you have available to you if you are of the female persuasion, and if you are male actually listening to my Jeep chats. This is good information for you too, because your partner may or may not know about these options, okay? And yes, it seems unfair that a lot of this responsibility is on the female, because there aren't a lot of male birth controls out there, really. It's just pulling out, abstinence, and the condom for men. They don't have a hormonal birth control. So it's our responsibility as the female body type to be the gateway for whether or not children should, you know, be in your life, okay? And you have to really, if you're going to be engaged in the act of sexual intercourse, if you're going to take that benefit out of your life, there is a responsibility that goes with it, okay? And you have to think about that before you actually engage in the act of intercourse. Because listen, guys, if you're protected from not getting pregnant by any of those means, then you can freely express yourself in the act of making love or intercourse without the worry of a pregnancy ensuing. Okay? So that's the key. That's what I'm trying to convey to you, that you do have choices, regardless of what the laws are in your land. Birth control is not illegal. Abstinence is not illegal. Condoms are not illegal. Pulling out is not illegal. Okay? So when we when we perform that sacred act, we have to take sacred responsibility with it. Okay? So this is a conversation for those of you that are not pregnant, that are sexually active, that don't want to be pregnant. That's what this conversation is for. Now, there's a whole different conversation if you are actually pregnant. Okay? And I may do another Jeep chat about that, but I really wanted you guys to just hear it. This is a conversation that I have had 4 to 5 times daily for the last 15 years on how to prevent pregnancy, control your period, take responsibility for that sacred act of making love and sexual intercourse, so that you do not end up with a life change that permanently changes the course of your life. Because once you make that one choice, now you are forced into a whole other set of choices. Do you see the train I'm trying to follow along for you here? It's not, oh, let's just have random sex and not worry about it and see what happens, and then we can get an abortion if it's not what we want. No. You need to think about this before you do it. That's your sacred responsibility with a female body. And I'm sorry that you were born with a female body and you have to make these tough choices, but it is what it is, you know? So we're just getting you up to the point where we are not pregnant yet. We're having sexual intercourse. We maybe don't want a baby in our lives, okay? So just if anybody you know is in the situation, this is perfect for young women. Maybe they're scared to go to the doctor. They're going to have this conversation with a gynecologist if you take them in to talk about birth control. That's what they're going to talk about with you. And they can go into it more deeply with you, what choices are more appropriate for which women based on their health and things like that. Okay? So maybe next time I will talk about what to do if we have had the sacred act and we did not think about it and things happen. Our choices narrow a little bit, but we can talk about what to do next. Okay? So thank you so much for listening. For this to any young women or young men that might be considering taking part in the sacred act of copulation, because the discussion of personal responsibility is really, really huge. If each of us can take that, just take one little step towards personal responsibility, a lot of these issues are really more easily managed. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you soon. Namaste.